Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We are going to try to answer a question that has shown up in my comments for the last 3 years. And that question is, do the guardian entrances prevent hive beetles from getting into your hive? Now, before I answer that question, I want to preface this whole discussion with this. This is my opinion based on my experience with the guardian entrance on my hives in my bee yard in Georgia. So there you go. You may have had a different experience. This is my experience. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about the last 3 years. I've had the guardian entrances on my hives for 3 years now. The first year, I didn't really want to say whether or not they were working because some of the hives had the guardians on them, some of them didn't, and I had hive beetles in all of my hives regardless. The second year, I was going to give it a fair shot and try to answer the question. The only problem is that I didn't have all the hives configured the same way. Some of the hives had open bottom boards, the screens. Some of them had solid bottom boards. Some of them had the guardian entrance. Well, actually, all of them had the guardian entrance on the front, but some of them also had an upper guardian entrance, so they weren't all configured the same. This bee season, when it started out, I decided, okay, I want to answer this question this year, and I want to find out whether or not the guardian entrance works. I put it on the front of my bee barns because I kind of believed in it. It's a nice entrance. I mean, whoever built it did a good job. But I put it on the front of all the bee barns. I've got all the hives behind me. They're all set up the same way. They've got the insert in the bottom. They've got just the guardian entrance on the front. And they do not have an upper guardian entrance. So the only way into any of these hives is through the guardian entrance. Now let's talk about hive beetles. 3 years ago, when I first got the guardians, I had quite a few hive beetles, probably similar to what I've got today. Last year was the worst ever. I think I hit the apex of hive beetles. It was miserable. It was bad. So bad, in fact, that I had to get the killing board out and actually bang frames on a piece of wood to knock the hive beetles out of it and smash the hive beetles to try to break the infestations in my hive, and that didn't work. I was actually killing about 150 hive beetles per hive per week, so much so that I invented the Beetle Smasher 3000. You all remember that, the Beetle Smasher 3000? Anyways, it's neither here nor there. I had a lot of hive beetles last year. And this year is similar to the first year. I don't have as many hive beetles, but I do a bottom board inspection every week. I don't show it on camera because it's too cumbersome to film. But anyways, I go through the bottom boards, I have a look around, and the bee barns have been dropping about 25 hive beetles and a whole bunch of larvae down into their trays every week. The same holds true for the Langstroth. On the bottom boards that I pull out, I'm having the same issue. I'm having a lot of hive beetles and a lot of larvae crawling around on those trays. So I have to say that's strike one against the guardian. Beetles are getting into the hive. Now, there's not as many beetles as there were last year, but there's just about as many as there were the year before. And let me tell you why I think my beetle numbers overall are down and whether or not I believe that has anything to do with the guardian. If you remember my second year and my first year, I left the bottom boards open, the screens, and I was worried last year that beetles were actually flying up through the screens and getting into the hive. But I don't think that was the case, and I'll tell you why. I think what was happening last year is that the hive beetles would come in through the guardian, come in through the front of the hive. They would lay their eggs would turn into the larva would crawl around, or the bees would knock it out of the frames. They would fall down to the bottom through the screen bottom board, get into the dirt, mature, turn into a hive beetle, and then fly right back up into the hive. Now, I don't know what the life cycle of a hive beetle is or how long it takes for that larva to turn into a beetle that would fly out of the ground and go back up into the hive and lay more eggs. But I'm pretty certain that, there's 3 or 4 cycles at least in a season. But let me just tell you, I think that's what was happening. And last year I created my own problem. I had all of my hives with the screen bottom boards continuously dropping these larvae into the ground, and the larva would mature, fly back up into the hive, lay more eggs, and it was an exponential gain in the number of beetles that I was getting, and it just continued all season long. And it continued to the point where even over the winter, I opened the hives up in the spring and I had a few hive beetles running around in there. So I think that is why my hive beetle situation was so bad last year, even with the guardians on. So now let's get back to this year and comparing this year to the first year that I used the Guardians. Now, the first year we had beetles that just came in. I just started that cycle of reproduction for the beetles. So by the time we got to the end of the first year, it was pretty bad. It was 25, 30 beetles per hive per week. And right now it's 25 to 30 beetles per hive per week. And I think that number might be going down, but it's only the beetles that are finding their way into the hives from the outside world that are laying eggs that are falling down into the trays but not reaching to the ground. So every beetle that flies in here, I don't think is coming from this property. I think it's just beetles that are in the wild. They're going into the Guardian, and they are laying their eggs. Their eggs are falling into the tray or onto the bottom board, which again I dutifully kill every week with my hive tool, and I don't let them get down into the soil where they can mature and get back up into the hive. So with that said, my opinion is I do not believe that the Guardians prevent hive beetles from getting into your hive. It's a nice entrance. I'm going to continue to use them on my hives just because I've got Guardian entrance reducers and I've got everything set up where I can choke off a hive if it's getting robbed out. They work for me. But am I going to rely on them to keep the beetles out of my hive? I'm not. I don't think that that's going to happen. If I could go back 3 years ago and be given the choice to put solid bottom boards on every single hive in my apiary or buy the Guardian, and knowing what I know now, I would probably spend the extra money and buy the solid bottom boards and put those on the hives. I think that would serve me better than the Guardians. Now, I can't say for certain that the Guardians don't work. I can just say that they're not working for me. If you have them, you may have a different experience. This is what I've experienced, and I think it's a level, fair playing field out here with all of the hives having the bottom sealed and just the Guardian on the front. It's the only way in. If they didn't get in that way, I don't know how they got in, especially the bee barns. And again, I'm finding 25, 30 hive beetles a week. Now that's not 200 to 300 or 150, 200 like I was getting last year, but it's still hive beetles that are getting in the hive, and their only way in is through the Guardian. So I don't think that that is the solution. And while we are here, I want to address something else that I'm sure is going to show up in the comments to this video. And I'm going to have a lot of people telling me to put starlight mints in the corner of my hives, peppermint candies or candy canes. Or here's my thing on that. I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach. I'm going to wait and see how that works out for everybody else. In my mind, putting a peppermint candy inside the hive that is made of sugar, and we know that bees love sugar, the bees are going to eat that candy, and with that candy comes peppermint flavor. It's going to go through their stomach and it might end up in the honey, and I do not want peppermint flavored honey. Now that may not be what's going to happen. I just don't want to take the chance with my honey. Now, if peppermint does detour hive beetles from getting into the hive or from staying in the hive, that would be useful. So I think I'm going to take another approach to it. I have actually made up little screen, I guess they're like little screen pillows with a cotton ball inside that I've put peppermint oil on the cotton ball. I'm going to try setting those in the corners of my hives and see if those deter the hive beetles. That way the bees can't get into the cotton ball in the middle of the little wire cage. I still have the peppermint action going on in there, and the bees aren't going to ingest anything that could theoretically end up in my honey. So no need to leave me any comments about the starlight mints. I've put a lot of thought into it, and I know that I'm not going to be putting candy in my hives, but I may put peppermint in my hives to prevent the hive beetles. So there you go. So with all of that said, I hope I answered the question for everybody. I do not believe, again, my opinion, but I do not believe that the Guardian works to keep hive beetles out of your hive. I think it's like one of those fishing lures that are designed to catch the fishermen and not the fish. In my opinion, this caught me as a beekeeper because I wanted to get the hive beetles out, and this was promising me that the hive beetles were going to be kept out of my hives, and it caught the beekeeper, but it's not catching the beetles. So anyways, there you have it. So with all that said, I want to thank you for watching. If you like this video, do me a favor, give me a thumbs up. If you have something to say, by all means, please comment. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, take a moment, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell to be notified of my new content. We try to keep it light and have fun here, and we drop a video every Friday around 3 o'clock, so there's always something interesting going on. This is not one of those interesting ones, but it's something that I think had to be said. Everybody was asking me the question, and I had to give the answer, at least my opinion anyways, and I love giving my opinion. So all that said, be happy, and I will see you next week, and hopefully next week we'll get in the hives. See you later.